The moment my sister said it, the air at the table shifted. "The Tesla isn't Jenna's," Lauren announced, her voice sugar-coated with that perfect mix of concern and superiority she'd mastered years ago. "She borrowed it from her boss." "Isn't that sweet of him?" Forks paused midair. Even the roast seemed to stop sizzling. I felt everyone's eyes on me, Mom's cautious glance, Uncle Paul's amused smirk, Derek's studied avoidance. Only my nephew, little Tyler, still looked at me with honest confusion. "But you said it was yours, Aunt Jenna." I smiled at him gently. "Go wash up for dinner, buddy." He nodded and ran off, oblivious to the quiet storm gathering around the dining table. Lauren turned back to me with a grin that could slice glass. "I mean, it's a Tesla, Jenna. You work at that little nonprofit, right?" I didn't realize saving the world paid so well. I didn't correct her, not about the car, not about the job, not about anything. I'd learned long ago that truth never mattered much in this family. The story they preferred was always easier to swallow than the one I lived. Aunt Sharon chimed in, passing the green beans like a peace offering. "Back in my day, we bought our own cars. Didn't need fancy ones either." Laughter rippled around the table. Even Derek chuckled. I folded the napkin I'd been holding and placed it neatly beside my plate. "Excuse me," I said softly. Mom looked up, her knife mid-slice. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" "I just remembered I have an early meeting tomorrow. But dinner's just starting." "Save me some leftovers," I said with a calmness I didn't feel. No one stopped me. They just watched as I walked away, the sound of their laughter fading behind me. In the hallway, Tyler reappeared, hands still wet. "Aunt Jenna? Where are you going?" "I have to go, kiddo. But next time you come over, I'll let you sit in the car." His whole face lit up. "Really? At your house?" I nodded. "At my house?" He didn't know that my house wasn't the tiny downtown condo everyone thought I rented. My real home was 30 minutes outside the city, behind gates, near a private lake, where silence was something you could actually hear. By the time I reached it that night, my phone had exploded with 17 messages from the family group chat. I didn't read a single one. Inside, I kicked off my heels, fed my cat, and tried to lose myself in a documentary I'd been meaning to watch. It didn't work. My mind kept looping back to Lauren's smirk, to the echo of her voice in that room full of people who'd rather believe I was small. At 10:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from her husband, Warren. "Don't forget the house payment is due on the 3rd. Can you have it in by then?" I stared at the screen. The house payment. As if I were the one living in that 4-bedroom colonial on Maple Street. As if I were the one struggling to keep up with the mortgage. I typed slowly. "Everything will be settled." Her reply came instantly. "What does that mean? Just say yes or no." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and scrolled through my property management files. Maple Street. 6 houses. All mine. Lauren's was just one of them, the 4th property I'd bought, renovated and quietly leased under what she believed was a helping hand arrangement. To her, I was the little sister who'd scraped together a down payment as a favor. She never realized she was paying me rent every month, that the deed had always been in my name. When she'd cried 3 years ago about how her family couldn't afford a house before Tyler started school, I'd offered her a lifeline. I'd bought it outright, structured her payments below market rent, told her she could refinance whenever she was ready. It had seemed generous. It was generous. But she'd turned it into a story, her story, where I was the helpless one, the dreamer who never quite made it. Sunday dinner had just been another performance. Another reminder that, in my family, success was only real if it looked a certain way, if it was loud, bragged about, posted on social media. Mine wasn't. My victories were quiet. They didn't sparkle at dinner tables or come with applause. They came in property deeds and investment returns, in the kind of silence that followed when you realized you didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark for a long while, listening to the hum of the house. My house. Lauren would make her payment. Or she wouldn't. Either way, for the first time in years, I felt something that almost resembled peace. And yet, as I climbed into bed, I couldn't shake the image of Tyler's face, that small, open smile when he'd said, "At your house." He believed in me. Maybe one day, the rest of them would see the truth too. But not yet. Not until I decided it was time. The morning after that dinner, I woke up before sunrise, something I used to do only when life felt too heavy to sleep through. The lake outside my window was still wrapped in fog, the water like glass. I made coffee and stood barefoot on the balcony, watching the mist drift apart, slow and certain, like truth finally surfacing. By 8, my phone was already buzzing again. Lauren, of course. Jenna, I don't know what's going on with you lately, but ignoring people isn't cute. We need to talk about the payment. I let the message sit. She could wait. At 9, I had a meeting with a contractor about a property renovation across town. While he went over quotes and deadlines, my mind kept circling back to Lauren's voice from last night, that smug, practiced tone. The kind she used when she thought she'd won. When the meeting ended, I sat in my car for a long time, engine off, fingers drumming the steering wheel. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Lauren. It was Warren. Hey Jenna, sorry about last night. You know how Lauren gets sometimes. She didn't mean anything by it. I almost laughed. Didn't mean anything by it? My sister could turn kindness into an insult if she wanted to, and she usually did. Still, I typed back. It's fine. Tell her I'll handle the payment. He replied instantly. Thanks. Appreciate it. She's just stressed lately. I didn't bother answering. Instead, I drove to Maple Street. Lauren's house looked the same as it always did, perfectly curated for social media. The manicured lawn, the white shutters, the wreath that changed with every season. She lived her life like an exhibit, everything designed to be seen, nothing meant to be real. Her car wasn't in the driveway, which meant she'd gone to her yoga class or brunch, or whatever her schedule of curated perfection demanded that morning. I parked a few houses down and sat there, staring at the place I technically owned. It didn't feel satisfying. I thought it would. I thought the power of it would fill something in me that had been empty for years. But instead, it felt hollow. That was when I noticed the for sale sign down the street. Another house in the neighborhood, almost identical to Lauren's, was being listed. Curious, I walked over and peeked at the flyer. $925,000. Lauren's mortgage was less than half that. If I sold hers, I could clear the debt she still owed me and walk away with a solid profit. No more Sunday dinners, no more fake smiles. Just closure. But then, there was Tyler. His drawings were probably taped all over the kitchen walls inside that house. His little bike leaned against the porch. He didn't deserve to lose his home just because the adults in his life couldn't be honest with each other. Still, truth had a way of catching up eventually. That evening, I finally called Lauren. She picked up on the second ring, her voice already sharp. Oh, so you do remember how phones work. I've been busy. Doing what exactly? Buying more Teslas? Her laughter filled the line. I could almost see her, standing in her spotless kitchen, wine glass in hand. Lauren, I said, steady and calm. We need to talk about the house. What about it? The payment's late again. She sighed dramatically. Oh my God, Jenna. It's one payment. We had a rough month, okay? You're not some bank manager. Don't act like you're doing me a favor. I am doing you a favor, I said quietly. I always have been. There was a pause. What's that supposed to mean? Check the deed. I hung up before she could respond. For a moment, silence filled the room like smoke, heavy, waiting. Then my phone started vibrating nonstop. Calls. Texts. What do you mean, check the deed? Jenna, are you joking right now? You can't just. I turned it off. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice, not the one from the phone, but the younger version, the one from when we used to share secrets under our blanket fort, before life hardened her edges. Promise we'll always have each other, she'd said once, her pinky finger hooked around mine. And I had promised. But promises don't survive lies. 2 days passed before I heard from her again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a knock on my door. When I opened it, she stood there, no makeup, no perfect hair, just Lauren, raw and furious. You bought my house, she said, voice trembling. You've been my landlord this whole time? I nodded once. She stepped forward, eyes burning. Why? What kind of twisted game is this? It wasn't a game, I said. You needed a home. I gave you one. Her voice broke. You lied to me. You lied first. She froze, caught off guard. About what? The car. The dinners. The way you talk about me in front of everyone. I took a breath. You built a story where I was small because you needed to feel big. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then, quietly, you could have just told me. I tried, I whispered. You never wanted to hear it. She turned away, blinking fast. You know what? Keep the house. Maybe you need it more than I do. And with that, she walked down the steps, her heels clicking against the stone like the ticking of a clock counting down to something neither of us could stop. When her car pulled away, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful this time. It was the sound of something breaking, something that might never be fixed. For the first time in months, Sunday came and went without a message, a photo, or a passive-aggressive reminder about family dinner. The silence should have felt freeing. Instead, it pressed on my chest like weight. Mom called twice that week. I didn't answer the first time, but on her second attempt, guilt won. Hi, Mom. Oh, so you're alive, she said, half joking, half accusing. What happened between you and your sister? She's been crying for days. Of course she had. Lauren always knew how to cry in ways that made her look fragile, sympathetic, innocent. She found out something she didn't like, I said carefully. Well, whatever it is, fix it, Mom said. Family doesn't do this kind of thing. I almost laughed. Does what exactly? Tell the truth. There was a pause on the line. You've always been dramatic, Jenna. Just apologize. Be the bigger person. Mom, I said quietly, I've been the bigger person my entire life. I'm tired. Before she could answer, I ended the call. Days turned into a blur. I threw myself into work, meetings, property inspections, anything that would keep me from replaying that last conversation with Lauren. But avoidance is a fragile kind of peace. It cracks easily. The first real break came a week later, when I found a letter in my mailbox, not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten envelope with my name in her cursive handwriting. Inside, just one page. You win. We're moving out. I hope you're happy. No signature, no address, just that one line. I read it 3 times, then folded it neatly and placed it on the counter. I wasn't happy. I wasn't even close. That night, I drove past the house on Maple Street again. The windows were dark. The for rent sign I'd placed in the yard earlier that week swayed slightly in the wind, its chain creaking. But then I noticed something strange. In the upstairs window, Tyler's room, a soft light flickered. I parked the car and got out, walking slowly toward the house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled faintly of vanilla candles and cardboard boxes. The living room was half-packed, toys and books scattered in small piles. And in the hallway, a photo frame lay face down on the floor. When I picked it up, I froze. It was a picture of the 2 of us, Lauren and me, both teenagers, sitting on the hood of Dad's old truck, laughing so hard our eyes were nearly closed. For a moment, I couldn't move. The sound of a door creaking made me turn. Tyler stood there, holding his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Aunt Jenna, he whispered. My throat tightened. Hey, buddy. Mom's upstairs, he said quietly. She's sad. I hesitated only a second before nodding. Can I see her? He nodded and ran ahead, his small feet thudding against the stairs. Lauren was sitting on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by open boxes. Her eyes were red, her hands still clutching a stack of photo albums. When she saw me, her expression didn't harden like I expected. It just crumbled. Why are you here? She asked softly. I didn't know you were still packing. I came to check the place. She nodded, looking down. You own it. You can check whatever you want. Her voice had lost all its edge. It scared me more than her anger ever did. I didn't mean for it to come out that way, I said. The house thing. I just wanted to humiliate me? No, I said quickly. I wanted you to know the truth. I thought maybe if you saw it, you'd understand. She laughed short, bitter. Understand what? That you've been lying to me for years? That you wanted to feel powerful. It wasn't about power, I whispered. It was about protection. You were drowning, Lauren. You just didn't see it. She finally met my eyes. You think you're better than me. I never did. Then why hide it? She demanded. Why not just tell me from the beginning? Because I knew you, I said, voice breaking. You wouldn't have taken it. You would have rather drowned than admit you needed help. That silence again, the kind that hurt more than yelling ever could. She stared at the floor, her voice small. You know what the worst part is? I told everyone last night that I was proud of you. For the car, for your job. I actually meant it. That hit harder than anything she'd said before. We sat there for a long time, the kind of silence that fills up all the space between two people who used to understand each other and now don't know how to start again. Finally, she stood. We'll be out by Friday. Lauren. She didn't look back. Don't. Just don't. When I got home, I sat in my car for almost an hour before going inside. My reflection in the dark window looked like someone I didn't recognize, someone who'd won a battle and lost something much bigger in the process. At midnight, a text came through. From an unknown number. You don't know everything about your sister. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Before I could reply, the number vanished, deleted, or maybe blocked. I tried to trace it, but it was already too late. Outside, the fog was rising again, curling along the edges of the lake like something alive. And for the first time, I wondered if the story I thought I knew was about to unravel completely. The message haunted me. You don't know everything about your sister. I must have reread it 100 times that night, the words pulsing in my mind like a heartbeat I couldn't quiet. Who had sent it? What were they trying to say? By morning, I'd convinced myself it was just one of Lauren's friends, someone defending her, stirring drama. Still, something about it felt different. Deliberate. I decided to drive back to Maple Street one last time. Closure, I told myself. I'd collect the keys, finalize the paperwork, and finally put this all behind me. When I pulled up, the house looked hollow, the kind of empty that isn't just about furniture. The curtains were gone, the windows bare. A single box sat on the porch with my name scribbled on it. I almost turned around right then. But something in me, curiosity, guilt, maybe both, made me reach for the box. Inside were all the rent receipts. Every single one, neatly stacked. But tucked at the bottom, beneath a pile of papers, was an envelope with my name written in my sister's shaky handwriting. I opened it carefully. Jenna, if you're reading this, I guess I didn't get the chance to say what I needed to. You think I hated you. I didn't. I was jealous, not of your money or your car, but of how easily you walk away from things that destroy me. You were always brave. I pretended that made you reckless, but truthfully, it made me small. I found out about the deed last month. Warren told me. He said he'd been the one making payments, not me. Said he was keeping the house safe for us until I got back on my feet. Only I wasn't getting back on my feet, was I? Because the truth is, Warren's been gone for weeks. He left. The car, the accounts, everything. And you were right. I was drowning. But you didn't save me, Jenna. You gave me something to hide behind. I don't blame you. I just can't stay here anymore. L. My hands trembled as I read it again, the words blurring at the edges. Warren left. That was the part one couldn't shake. Because 2 weeks ago, when he'd texted me about the payment, he hadn't mentioned anything like that. His message had sounded calm, normal, routine. And suddenly, a darker thought crossed my mind. What if that text wasn't from him at all? I opened my laptop and searched his name, no new social posts, no updates from work. His phone number, when I tried it, went straight to voicemail. By the time I called Mom, panic had already begun to creep in. Have you talked to Lauren? I asked. No, she said slowly. Why? What's wrong? Do you know where she went? A pause. Then, she said she was taking Tyler to stay with a friend near the coast. She didn't sound well, Jenna. The room seemed to tilt. Mom, when did she call? 3 days ago. 3 days ago, the same night I got that text from the unknown number. You don't know everything about your sister. I didn't even realize I was driving until I was halfway to the highway, the box from the porch still in the passenger seat. The coast was 3 hours away. I found them at a small rental cottage near the water, the kind of place Lauren used to call quaint when she meant cheap. She looked thinner, paler, But when she saw me, she didn't flinch. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "You left me a letter," I said, holding it out. "And a mess." I needed space. "From what? The truth?" "No," she said softly. "From the lie. That stopped me." "What lie?" "The one you believed about me." She motioned for me to sit. Tyler was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to his chin. "Warren didn't just leave," she said. "He was never really here. The money, the payments, it wasn't him. It was me. I was taking loans. Quiet ones. From people who don't forgive debts easily." I stared at her. "Lauren." "I used your name," she said quickly, the words tumbling out. "Your credit. Your signature. For the car. For the first renovation. I forged it." The air went out of my lungs. "I told myself I'd pay it all back before you noticed," she continued, tears forming. "But then everything spiraled. Warren found out. He said he'd fix it, that he'd handle things. The next day, he was gone. And then I got your message about the deed, and I thought." She stopped, sobbing quietly. "I thought you were coming to destroy me." I didn't speak. Couldn't. The room was small, but the space between us felt endless. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I was just so tired of being the disappointment." I looked at her, my sister, the girl I'd once built pillow forts with, now unraveling in front of me. And for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as a villain, not as a rival, but as someone who had been breaking quietly for years while pretending she wasn't. I sat beside her. "You should have told me. You would have hated me." "Maybe," I said. "But I would have helped you anyway." She looked up, eyes glistening. "So what now?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that the truth didn't set you free, not always. Sometimes it just stripped you bare until all that was left was love, or what was left of it. I reached for her hand. She let me. Outside, the tide was coming in, the sound of waves swallowing the distance between us. 2 weeks later, Lauren sold her car, cleared the loans she could, and moved into a small apartment near Tyler's school. I helped her set it up, nothing fancy, but hers. The dinners never fully returned, but the silence softened. Sometimes she'd send photos of Tyler's drawings or a text about her day. Sometimes I'd reply. We never talked about the house again. But sometimes, when I drive past Maple Street, I still glance at that porch, and I imagine us there again, two girls who believed the world would always make sense. It never did. But maybe finally we did.